Microphone test. Good, thumbs up? Right. All right, so I want to thank y'all for joining today. I'm going to start out with a story back from the COVID-19 time. So, as many of you probably were, I was working from home 100% of the time, and a piece on my computer broke. So, having experience fixing, replacing computer parts, I ran out to the store, and I'm comparing the pieces, and I asked the associate, what's going to be the best value processor for my setup in my hands? And the associate looks at me and says, I'll never forget it. It says, sir, this is always. Those are frozen Brussels sprouts, and where you get those plastic shopping bags. All right. Anyway, really, thank you for joining me today. Many things have changed since the COVID-19 era, and one of those that probably affects many people in this room today is the Illinois Equal Pay Act. So we're going to go ahead and jump right in. So, can anyone tell me the difference between these two job postings? All right, so the answer, of course, is that the employer posting the job on the left can be fined up to $500 if the posting is not fixed to include a wage or salary range within the first 14 days. So this 14-day grace period is eliminated for subsequent job postings. So everyone who posts jobs either on behalf of their employer or on behalf of other employers sort of needs to be aware of the dynamics when it comes to making job postings and posting them on online forums. So can raise your hand if posting jobs or administering an HR process is part of your job description. Okay, I got some. That's perfect. So the first half of this presentation might be relevant to some, and the second half might be relevant to others. But let's move right along. So what is the Illinois Equal Pay Act? I'll let you all go ahead and read shortly the summary up here, but the Illinois Equal Pay Act requires employers to pay pay wages to comparable employees for the same job description and the same type of work. The act does not apply to situations where the rates of pay are based on some sort of other employer requirement. So whether this is merit-based, whether it's seniority-based, the Illinois Equal Pay Act is only intended to be applied in situations where you have two people doing the exact same job, the exact same job title. So the law came into effect in 2003, and the law was amended as of January 1st this year. Amended by Public Act 539 of the 103rd General Assembly. So can the group, based on your knowledge or based on news articles that you read, summarize the important additions to the Illinois Equal Pay Act?
as of this year. Louder?
Requires a job description, salary to be listed now.
Okay, it requires a salary or requires a salary or salary range. I'm hearing that's correct. That's part of the requirement of the salary range. Definitely.
And they have a list of job description, right? Is that part of it?
That is not part of the, hopefully there is a job description though.
There's also something about internal, so there's internal opportunities. So if there's any promotions available, it has to be posted.
That's right. So folks who are internal to the company and eligible for the promotion need to be made aware that the position is available. And just to jump slightly further on the first point, the wage description also has to include a description of any sort of health benefits or any sort of pecuniary benefits that come along with the job. Okay, so this is part of the Illinois, or the Pay Transparency Amendment to the Illinois Equal Pay Act. Yes?
When we, because it doesn't apply to us, but when we go out and talk with employers, we make sure that they know that it's only for employers who have 15 or more employees.
Perfect, because that's exactly where we're going. Thank you. I didn't know how to respond to that necessarily. It was like, it's exactly where we're going. Okay. So as of 2025, employers are required to include the salary or salary range and a description of the benefits. Very importantly, third parties posting jobs on behalf of other employers are, under the new Pay Transparency Amendment, liable for the job posting. So what does this mean? One sec. So what does this mean? And I'm going to stop short of making any sort of like regulatory recommendation or anything like this, because the Department of Employment Security is not the regulator of this particular law. However, what this means is that if you're posting jobs on behalf of another employer, you are required to ask that employer for a salary range. And I hate to do this and add to any sort of administrative burden, but that ask should be via a postal mail or email or something along those lines. Okay, now, question.
So when you talk about salary range, how does that affect like jobs that, so I'll see, like I have people that see jobs that say can make up to, you know, as much as 70,000 in your first year or whatever, those type of jobs. And then, you know, people work there and they're like, it's based on like a bonus structure. That's why they kind of list that. And nobody ever, you know, gets there. So does that affect that? Or, I mean, if they meet all the other, of course, requirements, suppose.
If it is, gosh, again, IDES is not the regulator. But if there was a job that said you can earn up to $70,000 per year, that would be considered a salary range. Yep.
$0 to $100,000 is a range.
A salary range. Maybe not a helpful salary range, but it is a salary range. And also, There should not be any wage ranges that violate state law, so no job can pay you $0.
Wage to over $1,000 a year.
There we go.
There we go.
Did I see another hand?
Well, I was saying, so the state is defining the range as only an upper bound. They're not including the lower bound, because by definition, a range should have a lower bound there.
Yeah, I think it has to include what the minimum would be for that particular job.
Okay.
Yeah.
Again, yeah, I don't want to get into regulatory recommendations here.
Who is that? So is it the Department of Labor is
The Illinois Department of Labor is the regulator.
Yeah.
Anyone who, anyone who's noticing violations of the pay transparency amendment, the Illinois Department of Labor has, I think, both a phone number and a web contact to report violations of this. And they, I'll stop at that point. But a reasonable range, you're right, could be considered, minimum wage to whatever the,
They're actually expecting to pay for the position.
Okay, so any questions on the third-party, I guess, provisions in the amendment? Right.
Third party could be a staffing agency or a workforce agency that might be helping an employer post jobs.
If you're posting a job and you are not the employer, you are a third party.
Could be the staff.
Say that again?
Could be staff.
I'm not understanding. Staff?
Yes.
Oh, a staffing agency.
No, an employee. Or IDES employees that help employers.
I understand. Yeah, apologies for my loose tongue there. If you do not work for the employer, who will be, is the employer of record on the job posting, then you are a third party. But, say I work for the Department of Employment Security. If I posted a job for the Department of Employment Security, I am the employing party. Yeah. So I didn't want to get too far off topic with the discussion of third-party job posters, but it is an important distinction. Anyone with questions, please email me. My contact information is in the Whova app. I have business cards up here, by all means. And who does this law apply to? Also very important. So if you're posting jobs on behalf of a small business, and by small business I mean under 15 employees, this is not a discussion that you need to have. If you're posting jobs on behalf of an employer who operates out of state and is hiring workers to perform work out of state, you do not have to worry about the pay transparency amendment, unless that state also has a pay transparency law. But who is affected? Any employer with over 15 employees, and they're creating job postings with the intent on hiring in Illinois, as well as any Illinois-based employers who may be hiring for a job nearby. Maybe it's Rock Island, or it's just over the Lake County border. If those employees are going to report to a corporation in Illinois that is headquartered in Illinois or has a subsidiary in Illinois who those employees would be reporting to. All of those situations apply under the Pay Transparency Amendment. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and take just a breather right here. Any other, I guess, confusion, questions about the pay transparency amendment that became active as of January 1st?
So it's based on where the brick and mortar of the employment site is, not necessarily where the job applicant would be. So, say if I live in Wisconsin, I'm applying for a remote job for an employer that's located in Illinois, it would select to have the pay range. But if it's an employer in Wisconsin, I'm applying for a remote job in Illinois, they might be exempt.
Exactly. So if you're applying for a job, then yeah, Wisconsin. I don't know if they have a pay transparency amendment, but they're not required to have a job posted basically.
Yeah, so it's not about remote versus in person, it's about where the business is located.
The law impacts the businesses located here and not necessarily 100% of the businesses located here, not 100% of the job application.
So conceivably, a hypothetical situation, if they had a business that was established in Illinois, and I didn't have any Illinois-based employees, i.e. no employees paid taxes in Illinois because they were all remote, I would still have to. Like they all live in Wisconsin and remoted in.
Correct.
Well, it could be a situation where you're in Rockford, your employees are in Janesville, and they just drove over.
Yeah. Well, I'm literally living in Waukegan, and that's 15 minutes from Pleasant Prairie.
If the business has more than 15 employees.
Yeah.
And those employees, as long as there's not, say, the corporate headquarters is in New York or something, like if the human resources functions are in some sort of other corporate base. But I don't want to make this too confusing. Essentially, if there's an employer posting a job for a job site in Illinois, there should be some kind of salary range description of the here. All right.
Perfect. So I'm going to jump from the Pay Transparency Act of 2025 to the salary data. So we're going to use our imaginations a little bit.
So bear with me. This is the first presentation. I hope everyone's energy is so high. I like to walk around.
Yeah, no, which is totally fine. It's just no one virtually can hear us unless we talk about it.
Hello? Is it? Apologies to all the virtual attendees. I talk and walk. Greetings from Peoria. Anyway, we're going to do somewhat of a thought exercise here. So I want everyone to imagine that they're working for a new company. And I came up with a company named Corn Snacks, but honestly, just like imagine whatever company you're working for. The company leadership comes to you and says, we need to hire a database architect. Okay. So let's brainstorm a little bit. What is the thought process that goes into hiring a database architect? You don't have one. What's sort of the thought process here?
What skills will this database architect need?
Okay, so figuring out what the sort of skill base is, right?
Develop a job description.
Job description. Where would you source the job description?
Where would I share it at? Is that what you said?
Source.
Probably depends on my area and where I think, or where data page, it would show that I would find a person like that.
A strong solution.
Someone said Chat GPT.
Maybe ONET?
Okay, so ONET has very good verbiage when it comes to the wording of the skills and job descriptions.
Society for
Good
Human
reference.
Resource Management, SHRM.
SHRM offers a variety of supports. Illinois JobLink. I would pitch Illinois' virtual labor market information website, which will have a job description as well as the, maybe 5 or 10 key attributes of a database architect. All right, so I'm going to jump to what I came up with. That was all good, though. Mine was a little bit more holistic, I think is the term. So the first thing I would think of, do we know anyone in-house that can do the job? And if I would have phrased the question more accurately, perhaps these would have been the responses, but so bear with me. So do we know anyone in-house or in-network that has these sort of skills? Next, where do we want to source the hire? You know, if we're bypassing number one here, what's the urgency? Does our company have the resources to blanket every job board with our job posting? Or maybe we want to focus on one job board and advertise. So what's our budget like? What are the resources available to source these jobs, or to source the posting, if you will? Okay, and everyone sort of jumped on to point number 3, which is perfect, which is goes right along with the title of the presentation. So what do we have to post in terms of job description? And what do we have to, what does the salary and benefits range have to be? So typically salary ranges are based on a particular combination of hard skills, soft skills, work styles, and work values. And as we've already mentioned, ONET is an excellent resource. If you're looking for verbiage and don't just want to go out and source a job description from a competitor, something like that, ONET's an excellent resource. But I'm going to abstract from talking about ONET today, and we're going to talk about salary data. So the Occupational Employment and Wage Statistics data set is a Bureau of Labor Statistics and state initiative, which produces the most cited salary information available. So even a lot of third parties, there are a lot of excellent labor market information databases available, are going to use the OEWS as the basis of their geographic or skill-specific wage estimates. So what's there to know about the OEWS? The data are based on employer surveys. So twice per year, the survey collection team is sending out both mail and electronic requests to employers. Employers assess what occupations they have on the payroll and report wages for those occupations. IDES and the Bureau of Labor Statistics partner to produce data at the following geographic levels. So whether you're looking to hire statewide, maybe you're looking to hire a representative in Southern Illinois for the business, or you're looking to hire a remote worker, the data are available for Illinois as a state. If you're looking to source someone more locally, look at the county and the regional databases. So perhaps most importantly, how are the data organized? You see that they're published in multiple accessible formats, but how are the data actually organized? So if you've worked with wage data before, you might be familiar with the standard occupation classification system. The SOC was began to be developed in 1966 as a combination of census questionnaires and classifications of federal jobs. So the SOC is designed so that everyone's job title will fit somewhere in the SOC classification. And if perhaps you do some sort of unusual job, there will be sort of a catch-all occupational category at the end of each of these major groups. So the major groups delineated by the 2-digit at the beginning, these are the major occupational categories. The 4 digits afterwards denote the major occupations within each of the categories, and oftentimes, if you're looking at a very new occupation, there will be some decimal points after the 4 digits. But we're going to stick to this, this paradigm here. So knowing what is in the SOC and knowing about the SOC classifications will help workforce professionals work with job seekers, work with businesses. So what are the do's and don'ts? As you can see up here, and as you probably know from experience, occupations will pay more or less over time. A lot of times this is based on the supply and demand for the labor hours. Oftentimes the equilibrium wage will change based on the difficulty of the job, which is also a factor which impacts the supply and demand of the labor. All right, so do know the classification systems, or have this reference on your computer if you work with posting jobs. Learn the SOC classifications. Will definitely help you more accurately assess the wage rates. What not to do. Do not compare previous salary data with, or previous OEWS data with current OEWS data.
Why not? What do you mean? Like last year's data versus this year?
Right, so the SOC classifications are updated occasionally. One of the main examples of this, so in 2010, for instance, if you were looking up, let's see, the SOC is modified approximately every 10 years. And in 2010, a new occupation title was added called Workforce and Training Professionals. Previously, these workforce development staff were classified as labor relations specialists. But these are 2 different occupations now. So if you are comparing the occupations in 2008 with if you were comparing the salary rate in 2008 with 2012, you're comparing two totally different groups of people. So that's the main reason why you don't want to compare the salary data over time. Yes.
Wait, hold on one second. Sorry.
I want to ask a question. I want to go back to the OEWS, the Occupational Employment Wage Statistics. I understand that from the presentation that twice a year employers are surveyed. One, I just wanted to know, were there any employers in the room that can say they, what their experience has been with that? I don't know that we have many employers because I think only one raised their hand in the opening, or if anybody can speak to that. But I know how busy employers are. Do they really respond to the survey? I mean, because that's where the SOC codes are coming from. Can you just talk a little bit about that, or just maybe clarify my understanding of what I just heard?
Well, first of all, I'll ask if there are any employers in the room who want to respond to, can you, perfect, yeah.
I forgot that I didn't get the second bit of the question if I wanted to respond. I don't know whether we respond because I don't do that. Our HR people do. And I guess my answer would be it probably depends upon whether it's a compulsory response. We send a lot of data to the government. Usually they threaten us with all sorts of things if we don't send it. And in that case, then we will do it. If it's voluntary, I would suspect not. I don't know, Eric, if it's compulsory or not.
Yeah, that's a good point. So first of all, the responses to the OEWS in Illinois are voluntary, and in some states they are not voluntary. So response rates are lower in Illinois for that exact reason. But response rates are, based on conversations with my staff, higher than you would imagine, because it does take a lot of human resources. I don't like that phrasing, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah, it takes a lot to do the documentation. Yeah.
I'm an executive director of a nonprofit indicator, and I respond personally to the BLS every notice that comes out. And the reason is because I use it constantly in terms of positions we hire, budgeting, everything else. The BLS statistics are our primary standard to use in judging this. So I complete this all the time, and I'm actually surprised to hear that a lot of employers don't with that, because to me that's absolutely necessary to be able to do this. I know for us it's kind of like a chicken and egg sort of thing, where we're saying what our wages are, and then using the wage standards for nonprofits or social administrators and everything else that we're also contributing to. But at the same time, I'm actually surprised to hear that that's not compulsory. I actually thought it was. So.
Well, thank you for your future responses. Yeah, employer participation is really important for our program. And if there was not that employer participation, there are third-party countries that would scrape this information from job postings. And to know that an employer who would to know that a job posting pays somewhere between $50,000 and $150,000 isn't if that's what comes out of the online job postings, it's going to be lower quality data is what I'm saying. So I think, Andrew, did you have I don't want to put you on the spot, but you were raising your hand.
I'm not speaking for all employers. I don't know what the response rate is. I will find out if we actually do it. I just don't know. So
no.
Yeah. Do you know what the response rate is?
It's over 50%.
To piggyback off the comment about trying to scrape the salary from job postings, there's probably going to be some bias in that data unless it's from a state where they're actually required to report the salary range. Otherwise, I suspect that if the pay is low, then they're going to be hush-hush about it in the job posting. If the pay is high, they might actually mention it because it might attract more applicants. So job postings are probably not going to be the best source of information. At best, they'd be a starting point.
And yeah, I didn't come here to advertise IDES or the Bureau of Labor Statistics efforts, but that's a good point.
Just a quick follow-up, how do we make it compulsory?
I don't know the answer to that question 100%. The Illinois legislature could certainly do it, but anyway, yeah, thank you for, I much appreciate the discussion, and yeah, the OEWS is designed to be the most encompassing wage survey. And the fact that the Bureau of Labor Statistics oversees everything, I think assures the data quality. And IDES has at least one person working all the time on this. Okay. So at this point, I'm going to jump into a live demonstration, and then, depending on how much time we have, invite someone up here to help me with a live demonstration. So depending on what sort of, how deep you're looking to jump into the salary data, there are various options for accessing it. On ides.illinois.gov is a comprehensive list of Excel files, which a company could integrate into their data flows, data pipelines. Alternatively, if you're looking for, if you're doing research on a new occupation or a small number of occupations, the virtual LMI website and IDES's OEWS dashboard, links to which are on the Whova app. And more than on the app, I think you can navigate to Whova on your computer and find this link. So I definitely encourage you to do so. But I'm going to take a look at this high quality dashboard, and I'm going to immediately look up my favorite occupation. So I'm going to navigate to life, physical, and social sciences. I'm going to look in Cook County, although this data is definitely available at a regional level.
Are those white counties on the map where there's not enough data?
Exactly. So the white counties that you're seeing are going to be the counties that have no information for life, physical, and social sciences. So yeah, I'm seeing maybe four or five where the data is just not robust enough. Okay, so I've navigated to Cook County here, and here we are, economists. So economists in Cook County are estimated to have an entry-level wage of about $67,000, a median wage of just over $107,000, and an experience wage at $159,500. Now, if I was looking to say list a bunch of these occupations and download this into one Excel file or something for me to use for the year, I would jump to this bottom dashboard here. And just as I'm going through this, thank you everyone for responding to the survey on Whova. The question was, what do you think the impediment is for businesses or employers using more labor market information? And responses were fairly split. The top 3 responses were complexity, timeliness, and the fact that there's just too much data. Anything, again, I'm one of the 3 labor market economists in the state of Illinois, and the reason we exist is to support the distribution of the labor market data and to help folks put this into a more reasonable format for use. All right, so again, I was selecting a few of the above. I'm going to go with economists. Chemists. And survey researchers. And again, if you've used a dashboard before, you'll find this quite familiar. All right, so we have the occupational list, and the button to download these is at the bottom. So, again, and this is kind of a shot in the dark here, does anyone have an occupation or maybe even a work task that they would want to come up and use this dashboard with me in front of everyone? Is that asking a lot? Get on up here then. Get on up here. All right. I'm going to go ahead and reset the view.
Okay. I don't know which occupation the code is going to be exactly, but I'm going to try and find a data science. Say I want to try and hire a mini-me, somebody that's going to do a lot of my same work responsibilities, but I want to know, what should we be paying this mini-me? So let's try and see if we can find something similar to a data scientist for DeKalb County.
So you're going to be looking in life, physical, or no, computer and mathematical occupations?
Yes. I'm just going to be checking DeKalb County for this because that's where they're probably going to be working with me. Management, nope. Computer and math, okay. Computer and math. Software, no, none of these
So,
really. No, that's the categories.
While Andy is doing this, I want to emphasize that at the end of the session, we really look forward to hearing from both employers and the participants who bring the data to their employers, use the data, talking to job seekers, or anything along those lines. So by all means, please approach me after the session.
Well, let's go with statisticians. That's probably the closest fit. I didn't see this occupation in the county data, but I'm seeing it in the statewide, so I'm going to work with that as a starting point. So if I click that, it's going to be, looks like data scientists, they're going to make about $40 an hour entry. So it looks like if I want to hire a mini-me, we're looking at a salary range of about $85,000 to $116,000, and that's probably a good starting point for figuring this out. So.
In DeKalb County.
So I didn't see the data specific for statisticians in DeKalb County, so I switched to Illinois statewide, and that's probably going to be a starting point. I mean, if we're looking to hire someone, we probably want to be a little bit higher than what we're seeing in the average to the data anyway, so I'm comfortable starting with the statewide salary range in this case, especially because I'm not making financial decisions. I'm just suggesting what they should be, and it's up to our HR department to figure out what that amount should actually be. But that's how I would start with figuring it out.
Perfect. Thank you, Andy.
Great. Thank you.
So yeah, please. Microphone.
Where's the microphone?
Right here.
Okay. When you talk, I just got thinking, I know this is later in the presentation discussion. When you talk salary range, is that their realistic salary range as an employer, or going to a site like this and going, oh, across Illinois, here's the range, even though maybe we would never go that high or that low? Is there a requirement that it has to be one or the other, or can be whatever they choose to present? Because from our perspective, we want it to be realistic to the participant when we're talking about potential occupations they might want to pursue, and not give them some fabricated number because some other employer has it on the higher list or the lower list.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. The data are compiled from all sorts of employers. So you're going to have the smaller businesses, you're going to have the Caterpillars also responding to this survey. So yeah, this is really where having a lot of experience in hiring or in labor market information really helps, because what are you going to have to do to attract a worker? Something like non-pecuniary benefits. Maybe this is near their home. Maybe it's near their residence. I guess pecuniary benefits like stock options or something like that aren't going to show up in this sort of data. So there are ways that employers are marketing themselves to workers that aren't going to show up in this data. Mark definitely hit on the exact reasons for those points.
I have been primarily using the BLS version of this versus this specific tool. And the one difference I'm seeing is in BLS, as far as the wages go, they identify it by quartile or percentile, 10th, 25th, the median, et cetera. And here we're seeing entry and experience. What do those two reconcile back to in terms of the BLS data? Is like entry like the 10th percentile and experience 75th, or what?
Right. So the entry, median, and experience are administrative choices made by IDES staff. So the entry level takes all the responses in the first third of the data. What's that? The quintile? Not the quintile, but the bottom 33% of the data, and takes the average of those. And that's what the entry-level wage is. The experience level wage is the top 33% of wage respondents, and it's the average of those. And then the median, everyone's familiar with already.
Hello. I've been trying to follow. This is kind of like out of the realm of what I do as a whole, but I've been trying to follow.
Thank you for joining us.
So I'm listening and just trying to take it all in. But I wanted to know, how does these numbers compare to the numbers that show up on ONET when you're looking up certain employment and ranges and salaries and things like that? How do these numbers compare to the ONET site?
That's a good question, because I know a lot of folks, for a lot of folks, ONET is sort of a one-stop shop for, I'm going to find the verbiage for my job posting, and then also it has a state level number, if you will. ONET is an initiative funded through the Department of Labor. So them and the Bureau of Labor Statistics would work together to determine what would go, what salary would go on their page. This information is based on the same data set, but again, IDES makes the administrative decision to report them slightly differently, so entry wage, median wage, experience wage, as opposed to probably the average salary that you'll find on ONET. It's based on the same, the same data, to answer your question shortly. But if you're looking to source, employees in a geography that maybe is not representative of Illinois as a whole, so anywhere outside of Cook and DeKalb County, which are over 70% of the labor force, this is a really good tool, and I've heard from a number of employees that having access to the regional, the regional labor market data is beneficial to them. And also keep in mind, this is where the experience and workforce comes in. This data is from 2023. And the 2024 data will be out in roughly a month. Not roughly a month, but we'll be out next month. So again, there's still that data lag. So folks who are trying to be on the cutting edge of data, of wage setting practices or compensation practices, will still need to be innovative and not.
We have some questions online in the Whova app.
Thank you for looking at the Whova app.
Yeah, of course. So the first question is, where are we at legislatively in eliminating the sub-minimum wage for tipped employees as well as incarcerated workers?
I wish I could give a very comprehensive explanation to that particular question. I'm going to have to pass on that, although I know some of our keynote speakers spoke on that, those initiatives earlier. Someone closer to those initiatives. Please send me an email and I will find the answer to that question.
Perfect. And if you're referring to the keynote who spoke earlier, Robert Espinoza, our virtual attendees actually missed out on him. We had some technical difficulties. The live streaming went out. There's a fire over at the hotel side, so that made some systems go down. So if you are a virtual attendee and you are listening, our keynote speaker has graciously, he's going to record it for us, and we're going to be posting that and emailing that to you. So that's what he's referring to, Eric's referring to here.
There's a lot of excitement in Peoria today.
Yeah, so much excitement. Oh, yep. Yes. Okay. Okay, so that question actually came from somebody in the room. Good to know. The next question that we have on here is, what are the consequences for employers who fail to comply with the Illinois Equal Pay Act?
Right, so the Illinois Department of Labor is the regulator of record for the Illinois Pay Transparency Amendment to the Illinois Equal Pay Act, but they are also the regulator of the Illinois Equal Pay Act. So anyone with who has been wronged by employers not adhering to the state law can file a grievance with the Illinois Department of Labor. Was the question about the potential civil penalties to the employer? Because I can answer that.
It just says, what would the consequences be for those who fail to comply?
Right, so there are monetary fines for employers who post jobs without salary or benefits descriptions. And those penalties are at the discretion, caps to those penalties are established in the Pay Transparency Amendment, but the severity of the fines are at the discretion of the Department of Labor.
Okay, there's no other questions on the app unless anybody has any more. Any other questions in the room? Oh, 1 second. Sorry. I'm so sorry. I know I'm like the virtual microphone, please.
If you had a company that wasn't in compliance, is the penalty per infraction or just that they're not doing it? Say they had 10 jobs and maybe they just didn't realize they needed to do this, but it didn't have anything listed. Would their penalty be per infraction or just?
That's correct. The penalty would be per infraction, and again, it would be the regulatory efforts are sort of a case-by-case basis by the Department of Labor.
If they do not cure it, so there's a 14-day, you get told, I understand, and then you get 14 days to fix it, and then if you don't do that, then they can fine you.
Yeah, the 14-day grace period, that applies to the first notification of being in arrears of the Pay Transparency Amendment. So subsequent job postings would have to have salary ranges, but monetary enforcement would not happen immediately. That's right. But it is on a per infraction basis. Well, I look forward to sharing the next 24 hours with everyone at the conference. Please approach me after at the end of this sentence if you have any particular questions or comments, feedback for me or for the Illinois Department of Employment Security. And thank you for attending this session.
Yeah.
Thank you.
you.